Hi guys, this is Chuck from Nepali Brew. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a small video from our own friend Mr. Stubby from Texas Brewing, and please do not forget to click the subscribe button below. We bring awesome and amazing video just for you.
Okay, now that we have our pot here going, what we're going to do is we're going to get our muslin bag out. You'll be supplied in one of these in your ingredient kit. They're just like a kind of a cheesecloth, and this is what we're going to put our grains in, and then we're going to steep this just like a tea. And you can see here that you can expand quite a bit, so you'll be able to get all of the grains in there. Okay, so we're going to get our specialty grains out. This is where you get all of the different fancy flavors for, or all the really in-depth flavors that you're going to have in your beers. So example, this particular beer has roasted barley and has chocolate malt. It has a little bit of coffee malt and a Breeze Victory, which is kind of like a toasted malt, so it'll give it a little toasty flavor as well. Probably not a bad idea to get somebody to help you with this, just because it can truly be kind of messy. So. Depending on your beer kit, you may have a bunch of steeping grains, and then other kits might not have very little or none, just depending on the recipe. This recipe here has quite a bit of steeping grain, but this is what makes all your beer have all these different complexity. If you notice, I did this over my box here just so you don't get a bunch of grain dust all over the floor. Okay, so now what we're waiting for is we're actually waiting for the water to come up to 152 degrees. And then we're going to stick this in our pot and let it steep for about 30 minutes. Okay, guys. Also, you'll be supplied a lab thermometer in your kit, in your equipment kit. So what we're shooting for is about 152 to 154 degrees. It's really important that you get it in with that range, okay? Also, you want to remember too that you never want to get your steeping grains over 170 degrees. This is really important because if you do, you might extract tannins. Tannins are what you get in like a red wine that really dries out on your tongue. So you don't really want that in beer. It's really undesirable. But if for some reason you do happen to get it over 170 degrees, just cool it off as fast as you can and don't freak out. It might be perfectly fine. So, okay guys, now it looks like we got our water up to about 154, 156. It's really, like we talked about earlier, the most important part is we don't want to get over 170. It's really a good place to start though is about 152 to 154. If you get up to 160, that's okay too. We're just trying to get all of these different sugars and flavors from these different specialty grains, but the most important part, like I said, is make sure that you don't get it over 170. Okay, so we actually turned our fire off. We're going to get our grain bag here. And like I said, I put a lot of dust in the box. That's no big deal. Now we're going to submerge this grain bag here in our steeping pot. And it's okay to kind of dunk it a little bit just like you would in a tea bag. And you're going to notice that right away you're going to get some different color and stuff of that nature if you have a darker colored beer. And of course the stout, of course, is quite dark. So I like to tie the muslin bag on the side of the pot. I think it's just easier later on, and you can retrieve it very easily when we want to take it out of here. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to put the lid on. This is the only time that you really use a lid during brewing. And what this does is this helps us maintain our heat a little better. Now you want to check during this 30 minutes of time while you're steeping your grains, you want to check periodically and make sure that you're not getting too cool, because you still want to bring that temperature up if it gets a little cooler. So all you have to do is turn the temperature up on your pot. But we're going to move on to the next step here in about 30 minutes or so, once we get 30 minutes worth of steeping time, and we'll get to rolling. Okay guys, now that we've actually let our grain steep for about 30 minutes or so, we're going to remove the grain bag. And the most important part I can tell you is when you pull this grain bag out, just make sure that you don't squeeze the grain bag, because if you do, that can extract tannins. We talked a little bit about that earlier, about extracting tannins by getting your grain too hot. Well, you can do the same thing by squeezing the grain bag. So just let it drain out and then toss the bag away. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring our wort up to a boil. Okay. Basically, that's what wort is, actually unfermented beer. That's another terminology. So anyway, we're going to get busy with that. And we can remove the lid here. And like I said, just let it drain out. You really don't have to let it, get the majority of it out of there. But like I said, make sure you don't squeeze it and squeeze all the water out of it. It's a good idea to have a bowl or something next to you so the grain will drain out in there, or you can just throw it in the trash can. Okay, that's probably pretty good. As you can see, that can make quite a mess if you don't have something to put that in. Okay, so now we're going to bring up our wort up to a boil, and then we're going to move on to the next step.